21-year-old Pam Jabbour made 100 cold calls a day for a year before securing her first client. 100 cold calls a day at the age of 21. 17 years on, she has offices in Australia and China and runs a multi-million-dollar business that dresses 350,000 people daily, including some seriously blue-chip clients and Australia's Winter Olympics team. And guess what she attributes her success to? Marketing. Good old-fashioned marketing. It's a well-presented episode 608 of the 13-year-old award-winning Small Business Big Marketing Podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Tim Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of uniform marketing. I'm your host, Timbo Reid, and I have an insatiable curiosity for uncovering marketing ideas that help businesses just like yours to grow. How? Through weekly in-depth conversations that I have with successful business founders. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire that it absolutely deserves to be. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. A reminder that if you want to attract more customers into your business, I have the webinar for you. Past guest, founder of the Institute of Wow, and most importantly, one of Australia's leading customer attraction experts for small businesses, John Dwyer, joins me for a webinar on Thursday, October 13, in which he'll step you through this proven, highly effective and stupidly inexpensive way to bring in more business. I ran this webinar about 6 months ago and it was so well attended and John's advice so well received that I've decided to do it one more time, well, actually two more times this year, doing it twice on Thursday, October 13. You can register and find those times over at salesbooster.com.au/Timbo. And you can choose between midday or 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on Thursday, October 13, 2022, in case you're listening in the future. Put aside a good 75 minutes as John gives away a lot of marketing gold, which alone is worth the cost of the webinar, which is, by the way, free. So that made no sense at all. That Rego link again, salesbooster.com.au/Timbo. Pam Jabbour is the founder of Total Image Group, a 17-year-old Aussie-owned family business that designs and supplies corporate uniforms. She's got 36 staff, offices in Australia and China, and a list of blue-chip clients any of us would give our eye teeth for. Seriously. You're going to love Pam as she generously reveals the secrets to her success, including her deep respect for marketing, how she mastered the art of cold calling, boy, did she ever, and the way she went about it will surprise you. How she wins big corporate contracts, the ups and downs of running a family business, how she's built a culture that attracts and retains great staff, not just staff, great staff. How she deals with imposter syndrome. Have you got that? I've got that, and plenty more. I started off by asking Pam how it feels knowing she dresses 350,000 people every single day.
It makes me feel good, I guess. I don't often think about it that way. So that's why I've paused for a minute to think, hey, how does that actually make me feel? It is a big number, but I guess I'm such a futuristic person that it's okay, what's next, that I don't actually pause and really think about that.
It's interesting you say that. I was listening to an interview with Mark Zuckerberg last week, who was asked exactly the same question on quite a larger scale. But it's all relative. But, he's responsible for some crazy numbers, like 4 billion people's social media activity.
Wow.
And he too is like, I guess too, like when you're the CEO and you're at the head of the company, he was focusing on AI. That was it. It's like he's all about AI going forward. Facebook runs itself with billions of people running it, or however many staff he's got. You're obviously the same. Do you think it would be worth reflecting, now that I've asked and you don't give it any consideration, is it worth reflecting? It's not so much a responsibility, but it's like an honor. And it's like it's a reason to celebrate.
Look, it really absolutely is. And I think it's a nice reminder because for the longest time when I started the business, we never stopped to enjoy the moments. And I was known for just constantly pushing, harder, wanting more, wanting to better ourselves, kind of being very critical of anything that was negative and not really focusing on the wins or the positives. And I made a promise to stop and enjoy the wins. And I feel post-COVID and the last 3 years of what we've been through and what the world has been through, I maybe have picked up some of those bad habits again.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah.
It's like, get going, guys.
Yeah, let's go.
Keep moving.
Go. Make up
the
for
train's a lot bigger these days. It takes a longer to get going. Do you reflect back and do you like the Pam Jabbour of those early days that was driven and like, get out of my way, we're on a mission, or do you wish you'd done things differently?
Oh, look, I think everything is a lesson. There's always moments where you look back and think, oh, I could have done that different, but would I be the person that I am today had I done it differently? I think every experience shapes who you are. So I absolutely look back and am very proud of where we are today and where we were.
2005, you are a 21-year-old woman, fresh out of graduating from marketing at uni in Sydney. What problem did you see that wasn't being solved? And if that was the question that you're asking yourself, were you looking at a whole lot of industries, or were you just you were just fascinated by corporate uniforms?
Oh, look, great question. It kind of, for me, came together in a number of ways. I grew up with my dad being in fashion manufacturing. So he was one of the largest shirting and suiting manufacturers of that time and produced fashion business shirts and suits for some major brands. My mum was also super passionate about dressing appropriately, what you wore and how that made you feel. And so I grew up with her as an icon when it came to fashion and dressing the part. And I feel like both worlds through uni, thinking about what I wanted to do, I knew for sure I wanted to do something on my own. So that's how it started. I didn't really want to work for anyone. I felt like, I don't know, being young and naive, that I could just start my own business and make something work. And uniforms came to mind because fashion was terrifying back then, and I still find fashion terrifying. It didn't feel safe, secure.
What do you mean terrifying? Are you talking corporate fashion or fashion generally?
Fashion in general. So I was
What was terrifying about it? I had my 501s, I had my white T-shirt, I was fine.
As an industry, it was like I was this, I felt like I was this nerdy girl out of uni. Who was I to work in fashion? And through school, I struggled a little bit. I was definitely not the cool kid, and I felt like fashion was for the cool kids. And so I didn't fit there, but I was passionate about it and good at it. And so I saw an opportunity because Dad did suiting and shirts for men, that uniform was the same product. And having studied marketing and loving branding, that no one at that time was connecting those dots, like talking about the power of a brand through what you wear, and the story that it tells through your employees. And equally, there was no fashionable choices for women in workwear. And it was just about like an embroidered blue shirt and polyester pants. And I saw that as a real opportunity and a safe opportunity.
At the time you were starting your business, I should have done the calculation, but it is around that time I was the marketing manager at Flight Centre, and I'd come out of a ritzy advertising background at an agency called Clemenger's in Melbourne. And we were a very entitled bunch in advertising back in those days. We wore the cool clothes, the nice suits from Henry Bucks, and, it was all that. So then I get this job at Flight Centre, and all of a sudden I'm stuck in this, and hello to all my Flight Centre friends, I was stuck in, a polyester navy suit, this white shirt that had a bloody logo there, and I really felt, I still feel it was just awkward. I'm just not that guy that wants to be constrained by a uniform, or at least back then, because uniforms, as you identified, were pretty shitty.
They were, and I feel like it's about the choice and having the choice where there is a nice wool poly version, slimline with a nice shirt that isn't necessarily white with a huge logo. That's where there was absolutely no choice for anybody.
I've seen some of the work you've done. The one that caught my eye the most, just going through your website, which by the way is a fantastic. If you're a business owner thinking of maybe I should get in a uniform for my staff, it's a great resource to figure out. But the one that to help you figure out what, why, and what, and how. But the one that caught my eye was Bonza Airlines, which is a new domestic airline in Australia for those who don't know. And gee, it's pretty cool. And even to the point that I think you had a line on your website about the Bonza case study where you could sort of wear it how you wanted. I can't remember the expression.
Wear it your way.
Wear it your way. So that's a bit scary. I'm thinking of bosses going, well, they can't wear it their way. I want them to wear it this way, my way.
If the uniform is designed well enough, then absolutely they should be able to wear it their way.
Put your own. It was like I remember speaking to the fellow who brought Virgin Blue to Australia many years ago, Brett Godfrey, and I remember him talking. It was so many great lessons from that chat. One of them was that people do need to wear their uniform, but they can then bring. So there is the Virgin brand that you must adhere to, and you are representing. But then you, as a human being, an individual, can bring your own spin to that. And he used the example, which wasn't specific to uniforms, but he'd employed a cabin crew member, a young girl who in her previous job was a face painter at kids' parties. So she had to wear the corporate uniform, which was very alien to her, but she could also carry a tray of paints or whatever you use to paint kids' faces. And so if a kid's mucking up in flight, she could then go and paint his face. So that's not uniform based, but I suppose what you're saying is bringing one's personality to a corporate uniform makes the wearing of it that much more pleasurable.
It does. And I think what Bonza did is allow us complete creative freedom and trusted our ability to design something that would look good, feel good, and be functional, which is super important in uniform. And they were open to the investment of offering options. Some companies may not be able to do that, and as a result, the outcome was we've just had such incredible positive feedback. In a space where everyone's eyes and, the feedback is very out there. The media was all over the uniform unveil, and we had nothing but positive reviews, which is great.
Well, gee, speaking of media, you being in the spotlight on media, surely because you did the 2018 Winter Olympics, which I find I'm cutting to the chase. I want to go back and figure out how this business came to be, but I have to say that's an incredible contract. You guys aren't fashion designers. You are uniform manufacturers, corporate uniform manufacturers. How on earth does one get an Australian Olympic team uniform contract when you aren't Pruacton or something like that?
So I think for us, what we've done differently, and I talk to this a lot, is it's not about what our competitors are doing. It's not about what the industry is doing. We are very much about our brand, our secret sauce. And from the get-go, marketing and fashion has been the storyline. The way we pitch, the documentation we present, the way we tell the story of the uniform we're presenting to you is very fashion. So because I wanted to be in fashion but not be in fashion, everything we have done has got that fashion flair. And we have become recognized as fashion in uniforms. We have become a brand. And personally, I've become recognized as a designer. I get poached to design uniforms all the time, not necessarily manufacture. As a result, I have also launched my own fashion label because I do all the designing of those uniforms. Because I love fashion, I know good fabrics, I know great fits, and it's kind of become our edge.
So you're on the tools? Are you?
On the design tools, yes, in terms of I come up with the designs, the concepts, and then we go from there, yes.
What is your position within the business? I'm the
CEO, but also the head designer. So it's a mixed hat in that, but I don't want to let go of that. Like that is what I'm good at. And it's for major projects. Like I don't design every single client that we work with, but if an airline or, and again, major contract is subject to the industry. Where I can, I love to get involved in design. So I have gotten involved for clients with 500 staff or 300 staff and designed their uniform. I'm super passionate about it and it doesn't take me time. It just comes naturally. I'm very lucky.
I really like that because there are so many business founders. You're probably the 610th-ish business owner that I've spoken to, owner and founder. And, you all of you started off with an idea that you brought to life and were absolutely on the tools back in the day. But I would argue probably the majority find themselves pushed and pushed and pushed away from their love. the whole reason they started it. I don't think anyone started a business in order to be the CEO of that business. They started it because, Brian Singer from Rip Curl loved making wetsuits. Jeff Harris from Flight Centre loved seeing people have great holidays. And so often they get pushed and that the whole reason they're in it leaves them and they feel a little bit soulless because now they're a businessman or woman. You've held on to that. Is it hard holding on to that?
Look, it is. And so we've had, across 17 years, many versions of my role and I think COVID was a great reset in that I had become quite structured and we were on this growth path and, I had this triangle management structure and it wasn't enjoyable. It was quite stressful. And we found equally, because I was a bit disconnected, not knowing I was, like in reflection, that the growth was impacted and we were actually going backwards as opposed to forwards. COVID obviously played into that. But I think more so than COVID, it was me not being as hands-on with the direct team. And what I'm passionate about, which drives the business. I kind of never came into this business to walk away. It's always been a long-term plan. It's a great business. And if I want to continue at it and stay super passionate, then I need to find what works and where I'm best placed. And so for me, that's working very closely with marketing. I drive all the marketing and sales. And so working closely with sales means if there's a huge client, we co-pitch and I work on the design.
I think as of now, Pam, you are still the CEO, but that stands for Chief Everything Officer, not Chief Executive Officer, all right? Because clearly you managed to do that. Are you one of these unicorn business founders that has the ability to be super good at being on the tools and designing for particular clients and being able to manage, HR, growth, strategy, strategic partnerships, all the other stuff that comes with the more rational stuff, I suppose? You feel like a very creative person.
Strangely, I'm a lot of both. So I do a whole stack of reporting and top level management. And, I'm not.
We found a unicorn uniform.
No, I'm not on the tools. Literally, I have a team to support me. So I'll have a mood board. I'll create my vision, and then my team goes out and creates that. Comes back, shows me, and I have I have a marketing and brand manager who drives that team. We have a fortnightly meeting. It's all that's needed, and it's an hour, and it's top level, and then we move on. And it's same with HR. So I have a weekly HR meeting, but a fortnightly marketing. So I kind of have a meeting rhythm that works, and am able to kind of be both strategic and creative.
You a control freak?
A little. Did I give that away?
You notice my pause?
Yes. Yes.
I'll ask again, Pam, are you a control freak?
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
You did.
Does that piss people off?
I feel like a lot of my team are long-term, so we've grown together. So yes, right, perhaps initially, but we've worked each other out, and yes.
Well, I imagine particularly your marketing manager, he or she would have a sense that, oh, hang on, this is Pam's primary skill.
Oh, look, no, I'm pretty good at delegating. I think what taught me that, I have 2 little boys. I have a 6-month-old and a 4-year-old. And prior to that, I was a lot more hands-on. But equally, again, this is a long-term plan for me. And I really worked hard to have these kids. It didn't come easy. So I wanted to make sure that I could have that time. And I need to trust people to do their job. So I kind of come in at a top level to kind of push and drive my team to get the best out of what they're doing, but it's all about delegation. Like if I don't need to attend a meeting, I won't. If I don't need to be involved in something, I absolutely won't. But there are certain things, again, being the visionary and the, where I'll see something, think of it and email my marketing manager saying, what about this? What are your thoughts? I think this would be a great, and we kind of have this banter, and it works really well.
Incredible to find people like that, isn't it?
Yes.
Not easy from what I hear.
No.
What I've seen.
I've got a really solid team. I think that's a big part of our success. We grow together. We go through the hard times. We've worked hard to get to this place, which is why I have a HR meeting weekly. I think that's like my number one priority is culture and team and creating that environment here.
What's that meeting look like?
A good question. It varies subject to what's going on. Currently we're in a recruitment mode for warehouse and operations and we're on this growth path. So it's very much about recruitment and attracting the right people. And equally then it might be about certain departments and how we can help grow or nourish, or we're flagging sentiment that, recently, our warehouse has been swamped with work, and we've had a shortage of being able to find people to fill those roles. So we created a SWAT team. This came out of a HR meeting, where the entire sales support and customer service team are dedicated between now and Christmas 1 day a week. To Special Warehouse Action Team is their name. And we've printed T-shirts because everything comes with a uniform. It's pretty cool, and a logo. And the SWAT team are helping the warehouse between now and the end of the year. And it's working, and we're getting back on top of our orders and getting things out. And they feel valued.
I couldn't help but reflect on, you're a fan of The Office, Ricky Gervais's Office.
Yes.
Dunder Mifflin, I think, was the name of the business. Yeah. And between warehouse and sales and marketing upstairs, there was no contact. They hated each other, but clearly you've bridged that gap with the SWAT team. That's a good idea.
And it kind of helps everyone understand who does what. And for us, a lot of our service team are new, so it's helping them learn. It's part of their induction, I've called it. It's helping them learn the business and the product.
I've just come off a 5-day conference in Cairns that I emceed for a large grocery store chain, and one of the big topics was, because it's an employees market, right, job market right now. So attracting people, full stop, is bloody hard. Attracting the right people is even harder. You talked about the idea of, so is there a secret sauce to how Total Image Group attracts the right person?
Yes. Look, I just do not take culture and our energy and our values lightly. It is something that, regardless of what is going on in my diary, takes precedent. Like, I have a dedicated 2-hour meeting at the beginning of every year to create a culture calendar with my EA for the year. This is the culture calendar budget. These are my top level goals. Put a calendar together, make it happen, I'll approve it. And it's a simple thing like, in July, you coordinate that everyone in the team gets hot chocolates. We make them on site in the kitchen, and an email goes out and everyone comes together. Like, we do lots of little things, some big things, and there is this real, we're a family business, and there's this sentiment. Like, everyone was getting sick, and I love gardening, and I make my own tea. So I brought in all this sage and ginger and made a huge pot of tea in our kitchen, and my EA went around and gave everyone cups of tea. Like, it just comes naturally to us to kind of act like a family and create that energy. And I think that's our secret sauce.
It sounds silly, and with respect of what I'm about to say, like, bringing in tea or having a hot chocolate day individually isn't that interesting. But I think what I'm hearing is, over the course of a year, thanks to that meeting in January, 1 and 1 all of a sudden becomes 11.
It's that little detail, because people don't come together. No one. So if we send an email out saying hot chocolates are now in the kitchen, come in, and we've literally got this big pot of chocolate melting, big jars of marshmallows. We've designed it to look really special, and everyone just wanders up from all the departments and grabs their hot chocolate, has a chat, and then goes back to work. It's that moment, not specifically the hot chocolate.
Let's go back to 2005. This interests me. This is the reason we're talking, because the pitch from your publicist, Scott, got me quite like scratching my head. He said you made 100 calls a day. This is when you started the business, literally year one. 100 calls a day for 1 year before getting your first client. Now, I'm going to help me here, because I calculated that 100 calls a day, if you're working 5 days a week, times 52 times 100 equals 26,000 calls. Literal and skeptical me goes, no, you didn't. You cannot have, you couldn't have persevered for a whole year making 100 calls a day until you got your client at the end, which was the Majestic Theatre. It was a great contract, and you still have them to this day. Is this true?
It is.
Or were you just lying in order to get an interview? Come on,
absolutely.
fess up.
Yes, it's all bluff. No, to give some context, so the only job I could get through uni was a telemarketing gig. So I tried to get a retail job. I tried to get an internship in an office. I could not get a job for the life of me. And I kept getting told, you have no experience, so we can't hire you. The only people that hired me at the time was the MS Society, and it was a cold calling evening shift from 6 till 9, where you call people at home and try and sell them $100 raffle tickets to support the MS. So if that paints the picture of the only job I could get was that through uni, and I was actually really good at it, surprisingly. And I did that for a while, and then finished uni and decided to start this business, and being straight out of uni, wrote a business plan and did some research. And how I sold it to myself back then was, I had to call people at home at the worst possible time of evening. It's dinner time, it's bath time, people have had a big day at work, and I was trying to instantly sell something. Whereas again, having come out of uni, I sold it to myself as this is B2B. I'm selling business to business. I'm not even trying to get a direct sale. I'm just trying to collect information. And surely they'll be able to help me do that. And I didn't realize I had done 12 months, or like I was printing out papers, and I still have them filed somewhere in our archives, because I would handwrite and write my notes and then key it into a database. But I went by vertical. I started with nursing homes and then moved on to RSL clubs, and I was learning and building a business plan off the back of that. I was learning, what they were paying, who they were dealing with, what the shortfalls were, and I was shaping my business along the way, while doing that.
What I'm hearing there is they're not cold sales calls saying, "Hi, it's Pam, Total Image Group here. Can I sell you some corporate uniforms?" It wasn't that at all.
No,
it was you were on a reconnaissance. You were collecting information.
Correct. Can I speak to the person in charge of uniforms? I just have a couple of questions. I understand you might not be looking right now. Do you mind me asking what you're wearing, what you're paying? If you were looking, what were you looking for? And, on the odd occasion, they would say, actually, we are looking now. And you can quote. On the other times, if it wasn't that, they were absolutely happy to share their information. And then I'd ask them, can I put you in my database? And they'd say yes. And I was actually building a database. I was learning about the job roles. Uniforms in some industries were HR, in others it was marketing, in others it was procurement. And I was putting emails and job titles and businesses into a database and then marketing to them off the back of that.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. So that all that information
is in our database.
Is in your database.
Yeah.
Incredible. Do you still do that to this day?
Yes, we don't call. So yes, when COVID hit, I got the team into #hustle mode, and I've been known over the years if we're having a tough time to make them cold call, and they do. We're not so much in that place. We're getting a lot of inquiries, so we don't really need to be cold calling right now.
I chatted with a fellow a few years ago, Brad Smith from Brap Motorcycles down in Frankston, Victoria, and his number one marketing strategy was cold calling. What he would encourage his team to do, because no one really likes it. He would encourage his team to come in and just dress up. So, one bloke would come in and put a mullet wig on, wear some silly shades, and go into a different persona in order to not feel so vulnerable when you're making these cold calls to strangers.
I think when it's business to business, though, it's really different. And our sales cycle is so long-winded. It was never about getting an instant sale. But if you wanted to be considered for the larger contracts and they don't know about you, you need to make yourself known.
Just to leave the cold calling, before we do that, one last question. What's your number one cold calling tip? Is it simply to use it as a way of collecting information, understanding the market? Yeah.
It's a much easier process when you're not sounding like you're trying to sell something. And it's just this humble conversational approach.
You get 500 uniform contract for Majestic Theatre. That's your first job. Is it all up from there? Just a breeze after that?
No, definitely not. And,
he says knowing the answer.
That's, for us, we also engaged in online marketing very early for our industry. Our website has always been our pride and joy. And again, we are in a very old industry. So particularly when I started, having the newest shiny website, investing in marketing, that was our edge. We were one of the first to spend on SEO and Google advertising, and that created a whole lot of opportunities outside of cold calling, and we were doing that at the same time. And so we closed a major contract about 1.5 years in, off the back of a Google inquiry. And 1.5 years in, our biggest client had 300 staff. This inquiry was for 30,000 staff.
Do you remember the moment that client on the other end of the phone just dropped? Yeah, look, we've got about 30,000 people.
Oh, absolutely. When I got the call, I was like, and then I hung up and screamed. I literally hung up and screamed.
I love it.
And then, that feel, I just knew that was our kind of point. That was our turning point. If we won this contract, then, that would be the next stage, because that was huge.
I've spoken to a number of founders over the years, and the one that comes to mind is Daniel Flynn from Thank You. The Thank You Group. As he said, the world didn't need another do you know the brand, Thank You?
Yes.
Yeah. They give money back to third world countries to build wells. And he created this massive problem. He openly said the world doesn't need another water brand, but what he was doing had a social conscience attached to it. But when he went in to create his first order of bottled water. He had no idea what he was doing and sort of created the problem before he had the solution. So saying yes to 30,000, I don't imagine you were keyed up, or whatever the word is in your industry.
Not at all. And it was, and again, I just think back to that and think, wow, how far have we come? So, the expectation of an account that size back then was that you would create an online store, but technology was very different. So they gave you a period to do that. They didn't expect it to be ready. Now we win a contract, we have to have an online store ready.
What that means is like a password protected, like I work for Bonza Airlines, you log in and you buy your stuff.
Log in a retail shop and you order your uniform. So 30,000 people needed to order their uniform before we had an online store. And so we collected 30,000 pieces of paper. And so my first problem was finding data entry people. And instead of 100 calls a day, it was, I need you to process 100 orders a day.
Love it. You can laugh now.
Orders. Yes, it was very strict because we had, a certain period to key them so I could then place the order with our factories in China.
In that period of time, so we've gone from 2005 starting, 2008, that's the time that contract comes in. Was there a moment where you've gone, what am I doing? What have I done? Am I about to lose everything? Have I bitten off more than I can chew? Am I suited to this?
So the first problem was the one moment was when that whole first production, China had an unprecedented snowstorm. We'd keyed the orders, we'd placed the order was due in a month. We had 30,000 people waiting for this stock. And right before it was due to ship, China shut down from this snowstorm, or the region we were producing in shut down. And I remember sitting there, having to deliver this news to the director of HR and procurement for this major Australian company, and staring at my phone. And I had been in tears with China trying to solve it. There was physically nothing I could do. And there was no ETA. And so that moment, staring at that phone, I'm pretty sure I cried on the phone call.
No doubt.
To just deliver that news.
Knowing that it was completely out of your control, unless you had sort of factored in some kind of
which we had factored, but it was still allowance for any issue. This was unprecedented. But yes, even so, just think big corporates don't understand or they don't care.
They don't really, do they?
No.
They don't go, this poor small business owner who's trying to build something. It's like it's not even part of that. And I sort of get that. It'd be nice if they did have a little bit, I'm being generalist here, but it'd be nice if they had a little bit more empathy for us trying to have a crack. What was that person understanding?
Yes, considering. Like it was like, what? Oh my God, what are we going to do? And then I get that it's out of your control. So that line was like, okay. And I had kind of come up with some solutions. So I was trying to be as proactive as possible in terms of communication and what we do. Just
the way you talked about the way you've gone about building Total Image Group, I'm just wondering, have you actively done this or has it just happened? You're a disruptor in a sense, not a true disruptor, like, you're not like an Uber, how Uber disrupted taxis. But it feels like at some point you've gone and sat down and gone, these are the conventions of the corporate uniform business in Australia. This is how it's done. This is how people order. This is how we market. This is how we brand. These are the offerings. And then good business owners then sometimes those conventions are there for a reason and they're good. Sometimes they could be flipped 180 degrees and you ask, what's the opposite of the way that's done? And is it better? Have you done that actively or you just seem to have fallen into that practice?
So now we are absolutely actively doing that. We are breaking all the rules, doing things completely differently. And it's very hard for anyone to compete because we're just always changing and doing things different. When I started, that kind of just naturally evolved because I am passionate about uniforms and the way people dress. And so because I was passionate, I wanted the experience to be incredible and it just evolved that way. And then I realized what we were creating was completely different and out of the box and was only ever offered to the Westpacs and the Qantas contracts and no one else.
So blue chip clients, you've got Ford, Toyota, fantastic furniture, Honda. We've mentioned Bonza Airlines. We've mentioned the Winter Olympic team. Word of mouth at some point kicks in. I always say word of mouth is not marketing. Word of mouth is a result of great marketing or great product, really. So how do you get into those large corporations? Because they're not easy. There's plenty of Dobermans between you and the decision maker. You got a secret sauce on that, Pam?
Yeah, it's marketing. So again,
Love it.
I'm super passionate about that. COVID hit, everyone cuts back on marketing. We doubled our spend. Marketing is, and no, word of mouth has never served us. Unfortunately, the industries we serve are so spread, and the corporates just don't talk unless, on the sheer coincidence, someone changes roles and moves into another role where they need uniforms. That has happened because they've worked with us and that has happened. Or where we've done BWS and the same, Woolies owns Dan Murphy. We won Dan Murphy because they know us in the same head office. But primarily it's been through marketing.
So what do you mean by that? Marketing is a very general term and often overused.
All types of marketing. So we have never shied away from trade shows. We don't do them now, so it's trial and error. Trade shows served us for the longest time. Online advertising, SEO, PPC, it's PR, it's EDMs, it's database, it's social media, LinkedIn, it's every form of marketing. We constantly review it and are pretty aggressive in our approach and consistent.
There's two forms of marketing. We're talking right now about marketing communications. I always say marketing is everything and everything is marketing, but you're big on marketing comms. In marketing comms, there's two forms. There's push and pull. There's push, which is buy from me, buy now. Look at this new range, end of season. It's asking for the sell, which I think it sounds like a lot. And there's not a right or wrong, obviously. You sound like you do a lot of push marketing. Pull marketing to me is content marketing, where you're creating, whether it be blogs, podcasts, ebooks, webinars.
We do that too. So we do weekly blogs. And we pull. So for us, it's actually in a bit of both. And most important has been the pull, not the push, because right now, and that's why I say it's consistent, after 17 years, and it certainly has probably only paid off in the last couple of years, we have become a brand. We have become recognized, and that's because of our website, because of the content we put out there, because we write as experts in the space, because I've put myself out there, which was not what I wanted to do, as a public profile in this space. And I speak very openly and honestly about uniforms, about my thoughts on design, on brand, on all those things.
Did you say you didn't want to put yourself out there as the face?
No. Yeah.
You have, though?
I have.
What changed that?
The drive to see the brand succeed and to know that was our edge.
Why didn't you want to? Were you shy? You're not shy.
I've learned to not be shy, but yes, public speaking was my absolute worst nightmare. I didn't have, growing up until this business and even years into this business, I never had Facebook or social media. And now I have everything out on there, but I was not, my husband now, my boyfriend, none of us had social media. I was just a very private, shy person. And again, I'm also very driven, and I saw that as a weakness in me. And so putting myself out there was challenging myself to get better, because if I could pitch in the public, I could pitch better to the big corporates, because those presentations are pretty damn full on. It's uniforms, but you think you're pitching for something a lot bigger. It's just about this constant evolution of myself. And when I'm uncomfortable, I know it's right to push, and it felt right for the business.
You're actually not dissimilar to a lady, Mel Perkins, who started Canva. Mel, fairly shy girl, Asian background, so quite reserved. Her big break, and it wasn't about getting clients, it was about getting venture capital money. She identified the VC that she really wanted to back her, and found out he was holding a conference in Florida for a bunch of mates and fellow VCs, and they were just going to go windsurfing and paragliding and all that. And she actually just bought a ticket and went to it, and put herself right out there in order. And that was that was Canva's big kind of moment. I think sometimes you just got to do that.
But for me as well, that light bulb, again, I've always been big on learning, and I was at a conference, and I'd been to another conference, and everyone was talking about the biggest next step in the development of a brand is a face behind the brand. If you can personalize the brand and give that a person, then that's the next trend of success. And I remember that really resonated with me, because people are looking for a connection. They want to see a face, they want to understand a person, and then they feel connected. From a staffing standpoint, like recruitment has gotten a lot easier because we're publicly out there, and as a leader, I'm out there, but from a client standpoint as well. So it was right, and that was kind of the moment when I realized I needed to do it.
Good. Do you do much speaking?
A little bit. It's not my favorite thing to do, but yes, a little bit. Where I get asked, and for businesses and networks that I really support, like Family Business Australia, I do.
I want to talk about family business in a minute, but just to finish, I know you personally won an EO, the Entrepreneur. What is it? EO, Entrepreneur Organisation?
EY.
EY.
Yes.
You won an award there. Is it lonely at the top and therefore you join these groups? Is it a way of networking? How do you get told you're doing an awesome job or to pull your head in? Because sometimes it's hard when you're at the top of the tree.
So I have an advisory board, but it's absolutely really lonely, particularly because I started this business when I was so young. So everyone in my circle at that time, no one owned a business. I had no one that could relate to what I was going through. They were great listeners, but I felt also that I was boring them. And I've always been someone to kind of seek inspiration, seek learning. And so, through signed up to these things like Family Business Australia, Business Chicks, any kind of forum that I thought would be useful, and met my advisory board as a result of that. And we've been together now for, I think, almost 4 years. We meet monthly. They are 7 women who each also own their own business. There's accountability. It's a chaired meeting. There's an agenda, and they absolutely we hold each other accountable, and we have become the closest friends, and I don't know what I'd do in business without them.
So is this an advisory board for Total Image Group, or is this a group of women who get together helping each other's businesses?
It's an advisory board for each other. So we were in a formal thing called Power Players, which was our pack, and it was facilitated and we paid. That program fell apart, but we remained. So we are advisory board to each other's businesses. It's not a formal Total Image board.
Just want to open a can of worms for a minute, Pam, if you don't mind.
That's okay.
Could a bloke join that advisory board?
Do you know what? We started as a women's, so we were part of a women's group, and that's how it came up. But we would not say no to that now. I don't know whether they want to with some other women. It's true though. We came together in a women's forum, but we're all no.
I'll close that can of worms now.
Yes, yeah. I think
Tell me, you have great. One of the things I love about your website, and clearly the marketer in you comes out. You've got lots of case studies. You're showing the proof in the pudding, because you can say you've got great uniforms, you can show the process by which you work with you, but you've actually got these case studies, which I found really interesting. How do you measure the ROI, or how do you encourage a client to measure the ROI on getting uniforms for their staff? Because it's tangible, but it's sort of intangible.
If someone is unhappy about uniform, everyone will know about it. Everyone is pretty vocal when they're unhappy. When they're happy, you kind of don't hear anything. But equally, we run, particularly post a new launch and design, it's always nerve-wracking. So we run a survey to all the staff that have ordered, seek feedback, and present it back and make changes. It's not about being scared to change. A uniform doesn't have to stay the same.
Yeah, got it. Family business, Pam? Easy? Explain, how is it a family business? Is you hubby, dad?
So dad, hubby, my brother was in the business for a time. He's now started his own building business, Lloyd's Building. When Brian and I, my brother and I, were working together with dad and my husband, it's trying. Family is passionate, learning the language like brother and sister, how we communicate outside of business versus inside, husband and wife, expressing the passion, being too loud, not professional, knowing when to separate. Like right now, my husband and I work in the business. If we're at home and we're talking about work, if it feels good, the rule is it's okay, we continue. But the minute it escalates and we disagree and it gets heated, we pause so we don't bring it home, and we say, let's bring this back to the office in a formal meeting. And more often than not, by that point, it's calmed down and we actually understand each other's perspective. So it's just navigating what works for you and evolving and making rules. I'm all about trying to control what you can.
At what point what's hubby's name?
Tony.
What point did Tony enter the business? It sounds like when you were going out before you got married. a few years in?
Yes, a few years in. So he was a builder by trade. So he had his own building business, and I had started Total Image. And I guess that was a challenge in itself. We'd both come home, and my business was more important than his business.
Yeah.
His business was more important than mine. And then the growth, we went through such a huge growth period, and he could see that and was getting excited by it. And building was tough. People, people didn't pay, tradies let you down. Like, he kind of got a bit burnt out in that space.
What could he bring at that time? He's a builder. He's on the tools.
He very operational based, very technology based. So he's like my passion as a hobby was fashion. His was tech, IT.
Rare.
And very good at it. Like, he could build his own computers and still does, a language I don't understand.
Uniform geek, computer geek, hey, crazy household.
So it kind of worked. Yeah.
Interesting. So that whole family, and so there's just three of you. Are you?
My dad acts as chairman.
Oh, nice. Is it? Remember talking to Tony not David Smorgan, who was heading the Family Business Council at the time, and it is tough. You hear horror stories, you hear great stories. Clearly, yours is one of the more positive stories. But
we have the next journey to prepare for. So there was a lot of practice in the beginning between my brother, Dad, Tony, and I feel like Dad, Tony and I have found our rhythm, but equally, if my boys choose to join the business, what does that look like, and how are we structuring and setting ourselves up to ensure that is handled in the right way?
What's your approach to difficult conversations with people close to you?
Oh, good question. It depends. I used to avoid them like the plague, but now I find that it's always good to just bring things up if it's the right time, and address it, because if something lingers, then it gets far worse. And I always try, I have this mantra: count to 10 and kill it with kindness. They're my two. So I count to 10 first, so I will never just react. But if it's sitting with me, then I'll kill it with kindness.
What does that mean?
And discuss it. So it means always put yourself in someone else's shoes. It means just kill it with kindness. Yeah, like put light on it. Think about it in a different way, because more often than not, it's not about you, or how do you have a difficult conversation. And if I kill it with kindness, then it's more about, okay, this is what's happened, but I'm trying to understand what is going on with you. Is something going on? And it's kind of that approach, which makes it an easier conversation.
COVID was tough for a lot of businesses. It was also a blessing for a lot of businesses. You doubled down, you said, on your marketing spend. Tell us a bit more about how you managed your way through that, and any other kind of difficult situations, big difficult situations you find yourself in as a business.
Look, very strategically from the onset, I set up this business to be diverse. I never wanted to be, a lot of our competitors focus on one industry. They are known in healthcare, and all their contracts are healthcare. When I started to win a lot of major retail contracts, that scared me, because they took up a chunk of our overall revenue. When one client represents 60% or 70%, it's not a safe place. So from the very beginning, I have had an active approach of diversifying and working with major contracts across multiple verticals. What that meant was, when COVID hit, our major verticals got hit, but we had a whole stack of other avenues to sell, and retail crashed, hospitality crashed, but health and construction needed us. And with marketing, we created a weekly rhythm, a bi-week, where we were having sometimes 2 meetings a week, innovation workshops, and we said, we're just going to throw everything out there and see what sticks. We, created product that was appropriate for the time, sold it at higher margin, those kind of strategies.
I don't hear the phrase innovation workshop often, unfortunately, when I speak to business owners. Tell me about those, because one of my favourite early interviews on this podcast about 10 years ago was with a fellow, Phil McKenney, who was at the time, he was head of innovation at Hewlett-Packard in the States, and he subsequently created a podcast series and a way of innovating called Killer Questions. And so from that point on, I've always been fascinated by innovation. What's an innovation workshop look like at your place?
For us, it started by a whiteboard and the marketing team and sales team in the room, or virtually, and we were throwing things on the board and, saying, these are the verticals impacted, these aren't, what do they need? And then it kind of evolved to, okay, they don't need anything right now. How do we want to be remembered through this time? What can we do differently? And one of the outcomes of that was my ex-EA is an artist, and we commissioned her to design positive affirmations exclusively for us. We had them printed and on virtual, and we posted them to the local schools and nursing homes, and any school or nursing home client base because we felt they were doing it tough, with sanitizer and face masks complimentary, and a letter saying, we're thinking of you through these times, and so it was that approach, and it felt really good. The team came together, we wore masks, we packed these packs, we sent them out, and that, whether I directly impacted sales, I don't know, but it was and it just triggered other innovation in those industries.
Is there much innovation in your industry besides that marketing innovation that you talked about?
So again, like we probably have now, I lost count, 80 online stores, where, the online space and what we offer online for clients that come on. And what I mean by 80 online stores is 80 different online stores where people can log in and it looks like it's created for them. So, fantastic furniture login, it's fantastic furniture uniform, and there's rules around that. So there's a lot of technology behind that and investment to keep that.
That's huge. I mean, you're essentially, I never thought about that, but you have a web design agency essentially, don't you?
Yes, we do. We have our own in-house.
Shopify?
No, we built our own.
Why?
Because uniforms are complicated. Great question. I often ask myself why. People don't just prepay for uniform. We have clients who give their staff a product allocation, 5 tops, 2 pants, and the system needs to manage that. We have people that give their staff a dollar allocation. It needs to manage that and then allow them to pay via credit card. We have people that bulk order but want to list names. Like there's probably 8 different variations of the online store that you could not buy out of the box.
Have you got a wish list of like top 3 clients you'd love to do the work for? Put it out there
yes.
now. They're probably listening.
Bunnings, I'd love a bank, so
yes.
NAB or CBA.
Okay. All right. 30% to Timbo. If Bunnings or NAB or KFC, keep going.
Yeah.
They'd be good ones, wouldn't they? Wowee.
Yes.
Hey, Pam, I think it's a great story. Well done. Thoroughly enjoyed talking to you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If I ever choose to work for a corporate uniform business, I might come knocking, if all else fails in the podcasting game.
Yes, absolutely. We'll check who we work for, who works with us already.
Yeah, that's right. Fantastic. So if anyone's interested in getting a corporate uniform, and you should be because your business owners listen to this, is there a sort of minimum? Like, just last question, like where would you? Is it like, do you need 10 staff to have a uniform? Do you need?
It's just 20 units for the first
20
order.
units. Okay. All right. Well, that seems fairly reasonable. I might get some myself. Totalimagegroup.com.au is where you'll find Pam and her team. Pam, great story, and thank you so much for being so open and sharing.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, there you go, team. Uniform specialist, marketing legend, Pam Jabbour of Total Image Group. Geez, I love chatting with her. So generous in what she had to share, don't you think? Like, she really laid it all bare. And, like, it doesn't seem that hard. You just got to roll the sleeves up, have a crack, and have a deep respect for marketing would be my sort of big takeaways. There was some sort of, micro takeaways all along the way, but that's my big takeaway. I'd love to know what your big takeaway or little takeaway was from my chat with Pam by calling the Small Business Big Marketing hotline on 0480 015 150. Just like a very highly motivated and long-time listener, Erica did.
Hey, Timbo. My name's Erica, and I found your podcast about 10 months ago. Your podcast has changed my life for the better, both personally and professionally. I'm a 27-year-old bike shop manager, which comes with its own unique challenges, which I've worked my ass off to overcome. Your podcast inspired me to go bigger and gave me the guts to start my own hobby business, Mint Cycles Co. I make women-specific mountain bike gear to inspire more women to find their hidden potential and challenge all stereotypes, no matter their age or their experience. It's only small for now, but with your podcast and all your wisdom, encouragement, and teaching, I know it's got legs. Thank you so much for putting out the very best business and marketing content. I appreciate it so much. I listen to it religiously with my little notepad and pen. So a big thank you from here in Canberra. Bye for now.
Erica, I think you're ace. I think you're ace because you're a small business owner. I think you're ace because you listen to my podcast. I think you're ace because you are so enthusiastic. I can hear it in your voice and you are having a red hot crack. And I think by the sounds of everything you're doing, you are an action taker. And I can give you all the ideas in the world that you have been picking up from this podcast. So well done to you for doing that, but well done to you, especially for taking action. I sound like a broken record when I talk about this, but all the ideas in the world are useless if you don't put them into action. So well done to you. I wish you all the success in the world, Erica. Everyone else, be like Erica and call me on 0480 015 150 and let me know one idea that you've implemented from listening to this podcast or just a marketing idea that's working in your business. I'd love especially to hear from some overseas listeners. I get a lot of Aussies calling, but if you're overseas, just call this number, +61 480 015 150. I'll be looking for your call. Got some great guests coming your way in the coming weeks. In fact, just between you and I, I've asked Pam if she has any colleagues just like her. I'm reckoning she will. Maybe some of those women in her group that she gets together with on a regular basis. But I have got some great guests coming up. So be sure to subscribe, leave a review on iTunes. It all helps. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app because you'll find 607 more chats with successful business founders right there. This show was stitched together by editor extraordinaire Alex Amster. The music bed written, sung, produced by our very own Lockie Doley. And to you, thank you so much for tuning in. May your marketing be the absolute best marketing. Bye for now.